Hello, everyone. Adam with Peel Away Theology here. Once again, hoping you guys had a great weekend and looking forward to a great week ahead. I think today we're going to talk about young love and adolescent crushes and the influence of pop culture, especially from the 80s. If you click on the Facebook link, I put up a link to an 80s radio station if you wanted to listen along during the podcast. That might be kind of fun. Or any 80s pop culture station that you like to listen to. So why adolescent crushes? Well, I think there's a few reasons for that. One is most people had them. I think since the dawn of civilization, we started to develop crushes as young people. And I think it's something we really need to pay heed to. Those little people's thoughts and feelings. And I think that kind of leads us into reason number two, which is it's very important to our human development. It kind of teaches us how we're going to grow our relationships and how we're going to deal with heartache. Probably along with other social connections that I think that are probably very important. And three, it's just fun and cute. I'm going to reference an article out of the New York Times on the value of childhood crushes written by Bonnie J. Ruff. And she begins, when my daughter was in preschool, she came home one day starry-eyed and breathless, gushing about a 4-year-old in her class. I love him, she swooned, so much. Downplaying her theatrics, I tried changing the subject. She changed it back. I was baffled. That kind of love isn't for children, is it? As classroom Valentine's Day card exchanges just passed, giving parents an opportunity to talk to kids about crushes, here are some expert insights into children's early inklings of romance and tips of how to respond. For starters, believe them. A professor of psychology at the University of Missouri who focuses on friendship and peer relationships in childhood and adolescence has researched romantic interest in children as young as 3rd and 5th grade, half of whom have reported having a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and that percentage goes down with age. The difference, she said, is that young children are less likely than adolescents to have reciprocal romances. An elementary school-age child might never be aware of being a classmate's object of affection. What we are capturing with those younger kids is probably crushes. And although there's little research about crushes for children younger than the 3rd grade, many adults recall infatuations at those younger ages, and we see them in our children today. Dr. Rose likens younger kids' crushes to other types of pretend play, such as playing house or ambulance driver. It's kind of a practice. In research on children's social and cognitive development, those activities are discussed and very important in terms of trying out, at a very rudimentary level, adult roles. I could see crushes as being very similar. Deborah Rothman, a human sexuality educator and author based at the Park School in Baltimore, said crushes are a normal part of development. When kids start to see each other in ways that are a little bit different, I really do believe that they get a little zing in their heart. I clearly recall falling in love with my 2nd grade teacher, said Greg Smallidge, an independent sexuality educator based in Seattle, who trains teachers and works with students in schools and community programs. But for parents, he said, to appropriately allow our kids this normal thing is challenging because it dips into our fears. Parents are more confused than ever about what's truly age appropriate. Sex, of course, is not for children, but love and romance can be for anyone. And then validate them. As a writer on sex education, I often speak in schools. I have met parents who cringe in talking about how their preschool or elementary school age child has enacted romantic behaviors with other kids. For example, by holding hands, or talking about kissing, or naming a classmate they plan to marry. They often suspect the behavior is problematic. That's in contrast to what I've observed of the Dutch approach to sex education, which emphasizes healthy relationships and normalizes early flutterings of children's hearts. When I researched school sex ed in the Netherlands, one of the world's most sexually healthy and gender-equal countries, I found that Dutch speakers use the term verliefdzin, being in love, with equal credence for children, teenagers, and adults. For Americans, being in love is usually reserved for older teenagers and adults. We trivialize terms like puppy love or boy crazy for younger adolescents. And it's arguable we have no everyday language at all for the romantic thoughts of small children. Instead of brushing aside young children's crushes, Miss Rothman suggested simply reflecting back to the child that you are listening. Oh, so you have some special feelings about that person? That can invite the child to open up. Dr. Rose suggests finding a middle ground between underreacting and overreacting, even if the child's infatuation seems trifling. Maybe you also think it's silly that they don't like broccoli, but that's how they feel, and as little humans, their feelings deserve to be respected. Acknowledging and age appropriately supporting kids' crushes, how's Sarah doing? Oh, you got to sit by her. That must have been fun. Can be a valuable early opportunity, she said, to open trustworthy lines of communication with our kids about love, relationships, and eventually healthy sexuality. But there's also no need to go overboard suggesting that a wedding is on the horizon. Dr. Rose cautioned against teasing. Asking kids at any age about whether they have a boyfriend or a girlfriend may send unintended messages about sex, gender issues, or sex, or make them feel too embarrassed to open up about love in the future. As a neutral conversation opener, you might ask if your child's classmates talk about having crushes. Model respect. It can be especially important for boys to hear that it is good to have tender-hearted feelings. Research shows that American boys want intimacy and romance at the same rate as girls, but by admitting to that, they risk being seen as unmasculine. When regard to the Me Too movement, Dr. Rose said we can also respond to children's crushes by showing consideration for the object of their affection. It is an opportunity to reinforce an age-appropriate lesson about consent, even if the level of touching in the relationship amounts to nothing more than holding hands. When engaging kids in conversation about the apple in their eye, Ms. Rothman suggests trying not to lead with questions that are gender stereotyping or superficial, like, is she cute? Instead, she said, try asking, what do you like about that person? What do you notice about them? What's their personality like? Kids also need to know that it's normal to have crushes on someone of the same sex or gender. And then expect things to fizzle. It's helpful to learn how to deal with breakups. It's the beginning of trying to experience with those emotions and what they feel like and learning how to manage them. If you have a crush and he says something not very nice to you or he ignores you, then that's your first opportunity as a 10-year-old on how to process those emotions and how to manage those feelings. And then one option, of course, is to do nothing at all about the crush except to savor it. That is so safe, Miss Smallage said. That's such a delicious feeling. One of the messages that would be nicer for kids to hear is that they don't have to do anything about crushes. A crush has its own value because it opens you up and it's exciting. And most of them, I would say, just end there. And then not only how we learn to grow relationships and deal with heartache, but how we begin to develop the types of personalities we're attracted to as well. Which reminds me of when my daughter was little, we were at the pool. She was probably about 5 or 6 years old. And I'm sitting there spraying her with sunscreen, like a good dad does. And this little boy comes walking by. And he's probably about the same age, probably about 5 or 6 years old. And he's got this little skater haircut and long feathered back and he's wearing these Ray-Ban sunglasses. And he comes strutting by. I mean, strutting by, chest puffed out, and he is checking my daughter out. And I asked my daughter, I said, did you think that little boy was cute? And she said, no, he just thinks he's cool, Dad. And I started to get an idea of the personality type she liked. And in that same summer, right around the same time, this other little boy, our neighbor, we're out on the front porch just hanging out. And he comes cruising by on his little motorcycle. And he's like, is it okay if I take your little girl for a ride? And I kind of smile and I asked him, I was like, well, is it okay if she drives it? And he says, yeah, and he jumps off and she goes down there and jumps on and he starts showing her how to use everything and how to ride it. And off she goes and, they're hanging out playing and, he was just a very polite little kid, and I could start to tell, that my daughter's personality types, and you're going to have to come at her with respect and politeness and dignity and just a certain demeanor, which validated that I was doing a good job, thank goodness, and that I always liked the expression that your daughter will love the way her daddy loves her. So I'm glad to see that she has a good picker, if you will. Which also reminds me of one of my first childhood crushes, Desiree. And oh my goodness, I was head over heels for this girl. And She was cool and smart and funny, and she had this cool style, and my heart just melted every time I saw her. And in fact, I remember we'd have to drive by her house all the time, whether we were going to the grocery store, to football practice, or whatever. And I would just stare at her house. And I think one reason I bring up the 80s is, you know, since the beginning of music, there was love music. Since we invented movies and television, there were love stories being told. And there was always that song, I think that people had, or that movie, that reminded people of their crushes or of their love. And I think what made the 80s unique was this huge fluctuation in media. And it was just bold and colorful and just huge in every genre, from R&B to rock to good old classic 80s pop. The 80s had everything, and it was right there at your disposal. And for the first time, we had this technology with Walkmans and stereos and VCRs that was always right at our fingertips. And so, even as a child, when I'm driving by Desiree's house, I can have my Walkman on, just listening to love songs, by Lionel Richie, just melting my heart, or I Get Weak by Belinda Carlisle, it's just, and it was coming from every direction. If you wanted something upbeat, like Head Over Heels from the Go-Go's, or R&B, like Luther Vandross, or Sade, or dance music from Madonna, or Taylor Dane, or Debbie Gibson. And it was everywhere. And your movies, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Pretty in Pink, Can't Buy Me Love, 16 Candles, Dirty Dancing. It was just this reoccurring theme of love, and falling hard, just these hard, deep crushes, I mean, if you listen to all these 80s pop culture songs in these movies, they're either longing for love or falling hard for love, or that heartbreak is just crushing. And I think in a lot of ways that has an influence on us, and I don't and like I said, I think it has an influence on every generation, but I think the 80s was just, again, that massive explosion of very in-depth love, and in some ways, I think it had to have some effect on how we view our relationships as adults, and how we dealt with those crushes, and how hard we fell. There was always the concept of the point, or we always expressed some of those crushes by scribbling on our notebooks, and you see those couples with their thumb in each other's back pockets, or, you always had date night, but again, I think the 80s, you just kind of look at a movie like The Karate Kid, and the arcade they went to, I think our means for how we were able to express and how we were able to kind of play around as adolescents with that love, and where we were able to meet, whether it be an arcade or a shopping mall, it was just so much different in the 80s. And we see it today, but I think you really start to see kind of the birth of it during that decade. And like I was saying, there's just so many genres and styles, and I think it helped us break barriers. When you have that much media, when you have that much entertainment around you, you start to develop those celebrity crushes as well. So you might grow up in an all-white town and went to an all-white school, and you see a picture of Paula Abdul or Janet Jackson, and your perceptions start to change on who you have a crush on, and vice versa. I think if you were black, white, Mexican, Vietnamese, I don't care who you were. I just think when you saw Kim Basinger or Michelle Pfeiffer, you just had this crush. These are just gorgeous women. And as you travel, even you develop these crushes. And I remember when I was right around 11 or 12 years old, and I just fell in love with this girl at the hotel. She just had this curly hair and these cool overalls, and I remember watching a movie and kind of having that same feeling, and you're just so in love, and it happens so quick because you're so young and it's so fresh and it's so new. And then you get on the airplane home and back to that media. You throw in your headphones and you're listening to New Edition or Jodeci or something, and you get teary-eyed, and it's cute. And I think you even know at the time that it's cute, because it's a feeling that's only human, that's very deep to humans. So on that note, let's hear from a couple other humans on the subject. And now we have on Sonia Gates, a qualified intellectual disabilities professional who studied at New Mexico Highlands University. How you doing today, Sonia?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Adam?
I'm doing well, thank you. And this question I should probably skip, but I'm going to go for it anyway. But how old were you in 1980-82?
I was about seven-ish.
So just
I'm a lady. I can't give up my age.
right. So just starting elementary school.
Yep.
That first impressionable age.
Absolutely.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Kirtland, New Mexico, which is right outside of Farmington, very close to the Navajo Reservation.
Okay, so small. What was the closest city or mall or that kind of environment to you?
We actually had a mall that they built in Farmington when I was 7 years old. So we actually had a mall. It was really exciting when they built that mall.
Yeah, 80s malls were unique. Did you soak up a lot of that pop culture kind of in that time, like through
Oh,
the
yeah.
mall?
Yes, especially in the mall. All of us kids would go and hang out, and we'd wear our jean jackets and, have our Aquanet hair. Of course, this was closer to when I was a preteen. But yeah, that was the hangout.
And those were the kids you were kind of starting to look up to, kind of in 1982, 83,
Absolutely.
wanted to be those mall kids.
Yes, we were the mall kids.
Yeah, how old were you when you had your first crush?
I was about third grade. I had a crush on a blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy that would chase me around the playground. And then one day after recess, I was walking in the doors and all us kids were being forced, through the hall, like hundreds of kids. And he come running through the hall, grabbed me and kissed my cheek, and he ran off. And I just knew it was love at first sight.
Did you ever have a little guy give you a present or that little special Valentine or anything?
I did in kindergarten, actually. My my friend's brother had a crush on me in kindergarten, and he stole his mom's ring and gave it to me. And on the bus after school, and I was so excited to go home and show my parents I'm engaged. And they were devastated.
Like, now we got to get the ring back. This thing's worth money.
Right?
That's funny. Did you have a lot of crushes growing up?
I did. I was boy crazy, so I had a new crush pretty frequently. Pretty frequently.
Did you get a lot of celebrity crushes?
Absolutely. We would get Teen Magazine, and let me tell you, Johnny Depp, he was the crush. And then Karate Kid came out, so of course Ralph Macchio was a crush for a minute.
I was going to say, you like the guys that don't age.
I do.
When did you consider that was like your first love? Like, how old were you when you really considered that was something more than a crush?
When I thought I was in love, I think 12. My first real boyfriend actually, bought me flowers and officially asked me to be his girlfriend. And I was like, oh, this is guy. This is a guy I'm going to be with for the rest of my life. This is it.
Was that the guy you were with?
It wasn't. He wasn't the one.
Oh, you never know. Because I understand you met your husband. You've known him your whole life, haven't you? Or your ex-husband, I'm sorry.
Yep, my ex-husband, yeah. I had known him since we were little kids. As a matter of fact, I had a crush on him when we were little kids. We lived in the same neighborhood and rode the same school bus, and he sat at the front of the bus, and I always remember thinking, oh, he's so cute.
Did you make mixtapes? And
we didn't, because we actually lost touch with one another, but I did get mixtapes. And I kept them. And I kept the jean jackets. I was that girl.
Nice. Do you have a Duran Duran button?
I did.
Nice.
Who didn't? My favorite jean jacket, though, had the Slayer written in Sharpie marker on the back, though.
Nice. And mine was Metallica. So. And did you have that vacation love that you always see emulated in movies?
I did. I went to California one year to stay with my step-grandparents, and that was culture shock because, the kids there look very different from the kids where I come from in rural New Mexico. And I had the biggest crush on the neighbor's son. His name was Mark. He was your typical tan, blonde hair, blue-eyed, dreamy beach bum who
Nice.
rode a skateboard. And my grandparents had two flags for the pool. So there's a red flag and a green flag. So once the green flag was up, all the neighborhood kids came. And it was just my favorite to sit there and watch all the neighborhood kids come because at that age and in the middle of the summer, the boys took their shirts off. And yeah, I had a couple few crushes that summer.
Sit around pining about Mark.
Yes. I even wrote
When
him
did you?
letters after I came home.
Nice. Were you a scribbler? Did you scribble on your notebook? And
Yes. And my hand and my shoes and my jean pants.
when did you do your first like date type thing, like movies, arcade, pool party, whatever?
When I was 12, we'd go to the mall because they had a movie theater there. And so I wasn't allowed to date. So I would say I was going to the mall with my girlfriends, and all my girlfriends would go. And of course, we'd meet up with the boys there
Mm-hmm.
and go to the movies, and we'd sit and, share popcorns and accidentally touch hands. And
Listen to the boys' voices crack as they're trying to get to first base.
yes.
Was that one of your favorite places? Was it kind of the mall, or was there an arcade, rec center, park? Where'd you guys like to hang out the most?
We had a skating rink, so that was the big hangout. So the mall was like during the day or during the week, but on Friday and Saturday nights, we're always at the skating rink.
Nice. Skate City.
Yeah.
You have the slow skate.
Yep, we had the slow skate come across the skating rink to come pick you to skate around with him.
And how did you view other genres, kind of out your side of the circle? And like, what was your style kind of like as you started to have the ability to express style? To kind of go more down that Madonna road, or more down that big hair band rocker mode, or?
I kind of went through all of them. Like at first, it was a Cyndi Lauper. Ooh, Cyndi Lauper was so cool. And then the Madonna thing happened. But then I started watching 16 Candles. And of course, I'm like, well, Molly Ringwald got the cute guy. So maybe I should rock the Molly Ringwald look. Maybe that'll land me a cute boy. And then I liked the Bad Boy Rebels. So it was the jean jackets and rolling up your pants and, drawing fake tattoos on your arms and rocking out to, the big hair bands and getting a little wild and crazy. Up all night, sleep all day.
Do you think that bad boy perception attracted
Yes.
those bad boys?
Oh, yeah.
Do you think all that? Because again, that music, like I said, those love ballads and those movies, like everybody was falling so hard in love, like crushing so hard, or their heartbreak was so hard. Do you think you felt that way just because of the music and stuff you were listening to?
Yeah, I do, because I was pretty easily influenced as a young girl because I didn't have any siblings, so I didn't have any personal experience to learn from older siblings or anything. So, what I got came from the culture. And so when you watch like Pretty in Pink or Weird Science, it's yeah, it set a standard for what my perception of what love and crushing and relationships were supposed to look like.
Do you think that gave kind of people of our generation kind of an unrealistic expectation of what love and romance is, or do you think it kind of strengthened those bonds? And
I think it's a little of both.
yeah.
And of course, I'm speaking from the girl's perspective. I think from a girl's perspective, absolutely yes. But I don't know from a man's perspective. I think it looks different because when I think of those types of movies and those songs from a man's perspective, it looked very different. And so I think it gave a different stigma.
So I can see that both ways too. And I think some of those movies and music portrayed, like I said, the bad boy, that independent player.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think in a lot of ways too, like, you kind of get guys like Lionel Richie or all those rock love ballads, you know what I mean, where it was like okay for a man to be in love,
Yeah.
to express that love. And I think sometimes in too grandiose ways. Sometimes, and I think that's what media are portrayed. And I think sometimes when I was growing up, sometimes that was hard to like live up to. I was like, well, I'm not that guy out of the movie. Just a normal freshman in high school here, guys.
I
uh,
was just the underdog girl with clothes that we bought from Kmart, trying to make them look fabulous and
and I think
have
that was,
that sex appeal that I didn't have at 12 years old.
and that's, I don't think care what generation you're from. When you're 12, you're 12. It's awkward. It's
Yep.
our teeth aren't set right. Our hair's looking funny.
Yep.
And I think the
Boys
80s,
fall down all the time, which is funny.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's why the 80s were funny, because I think it sometimes highlighted that awkwardness. 'Cause it looked like you were trying so hard to kind of fit into this one genre, you know what I mean, that you probably didn't really naturally fall into.
Absolutely. I think when you're a kid at that age, you're trying to figure out absolutely where you fit in your clique. And so when you watch those movies, and they were very cliquish,
Mm-hmm.
and you had the jocks and the cheerleaders and the the geeks, and then those that didn't fit into any of those. And so you watch the pop culture and the popularity, and everybody wants to be in the popularity club. So you tend to get crushes that are in a clique that aren't yours, and you don't necessarily get to be with that person that you get a crush on, and it's heartbreaking. But in the movies, a lot of the times the underdog girl or the underdog guy ends up with the person that's out of their social clique. And so I think it sets people up to think that, oh, I can reach outside of my comfort zone and end up with something wonderful.
Do you think that also helped though, like experience different genres and cultures just by, because as a sociologist, like we literally have to walk into that situation to experience it, not just observe it from the outside, but to engulf it. And I think that was one of the benefits that we had as 80s kids is we didn't just observe things. Like we literally would change our whole style and walk right into that culture. just
Absolutely.
just because we wanted to date a person. Like I said, whether we got them or not, I think one of the benefits is, we got to see, the rockers were normal, that girls that dressed like Pat Benatar were normal, that the geeks were normal, because we
Right.
kind of tried it all.
Yeah, I absolutely think so. Well, and I think it's a confidence booster, really, because it gave us permission, and to me that's what it is. It gave us permission to explore being something different, to learn how to be a different person, and to give us those experiences that we needed to figure out what we do and don't like.
Yeah, totally. What personality types we're attracted to, which ones we're not.
Mhm.
Because I know, like myself, like, did you think that when you kind of mentioned it, like you changed your style for boys? Like I know I did. Like, was that a big reason that you changed styles, or was it also you were just kind of curious about that lifestyle?
It was both. I'd see a cute boy and he'd be hanging out with the bad kids, and I'm like, "Oh, are they really bad kids? And they look like they're having fun. So let me change my style and try that." Or like the cowboys, we had a cruise downtown. All us kids would go hang out, and we had a cowboy corner. I'm like, well, let me try that on for a minute and see if I like it over here. So yeah, so it
Yeah,
wasn't always just about the crush or the boy, but it was about trying a different, you know, culture, really, because the pop culture is different in the different genres. So being able to see if that fits who I am and what I like to do.
yeah, totally. I think that's why 80s were so much fun. Also, kind of being able to discover who you are and what you like, and
Mhm.
everything went. If you wanted to be goth, go be goth. Want to be a jock, go be a jock.
Absolutely.
And how'd you deal with your childhood crush, or your children's childhood crushes?
Um, the first time my son come home with tears in his eyes because his girlfriend hurt his feelings,
Well,
and it gave me an opportunity to tell him You have permission to be sad, but then you have the responsibility to think about what part you played in that.
Yeah.
So, because it's not always one-sided. And then also, it gave me an opportunity to teach them this is your chance to think about what happened and why you didn't like it so that you can communicate that better with somebody in the future.
Do you think they're affected as much as we were by pop culture? And I talk about it a lot. Like we had whole albums that we could just sit down and pine over for an hour or two and either feel in love or long or sad or whatever our emotion was. The kids now, they don't really have that. They have singles, they jump on YouTube,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
movies pretty violent and quick.
Yeah,
Like
I think it's very
what?
different, because in the 80s and you felt sad, there was always a song or something that you could turn to, you know, associate with really. And I think now, when I look at my kids and I can tell that they're down or something's going on, it depends on what kind of video game they're playing. So it's very different, or what kind of video, like you say, what kind of videos they're watching on YouTube, or it's very different.
Yeah, it's almost like they're more affected by the media as opposed to finding media that affects them the way they want to be affected.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
Like when we were kids, because again, sadness is good, and I think it's a good thing to learn how to deal with that and soak it up. But
Hmm.
music could really help that, like, help you get over it, but also really help you just find the depth of it. And then same thing of like having a crush, just being like, oh my god, she's so cute. And then you hear this really cool song, and you're just like, oh my god, I can't wait to ask her out on Monday.
Yeah,
Whereas kids now, I think they just kind of open up that phone, and it's just like, well, whatever's there.
yeah,
So if somebody's there saying, well, love sucks, you hear that so many times. Well, you're not going to go ask the girl out on Monday.
right.
You didn't choose how you were going to feel.
I agree with that. Well, and I can still remember breakup songs, or skating at the skating rink with with my crush to a certain song. I still remember that, and I think that's something that our kids are missing, because they don't have that advantage now. And I don't know that it's a disadvantage. It's probably my perception, but it is very different.
And that's what I think. They're still falling in love. Right? People are still getting married and having children. It's just different. Like you said, it's just something we're not used to. And like I said, I think it's something we're very fortunate to have. To kind of be during that time, because even before then, I think we grew up, like I said, with these notions of having a song. You kind of think of your grandparents having a song that's theirs.
Mhm.
Of your parents having a song that's theirs, and so you kind of think, well, I need to grow up. And when I fall in love, we need a song.
Yeah,
And I don't think kids really have that notion. I don't even think they either think that's a thing or they think that's super old fashioned.
they probably think it's super old fashioned.
Mm-hmm. Whereas again, I'm still, because like I said, the 80s were that last generation of that freedom to jump on your bicycle and go meet your friends, or sneak off to the mall to go meet the boys, or, you know, these kids, and like I said, these kids don't have bad by any means.
No, no, not at all.
Yeah, I'm not saying we had it better. I'm just saying it was just cool. Yeah, I just love to pay heed to the times we got to grow up in. And me and my sister the other day were talking about toys for 30 minutes. They were just that cool.
Yeah, yeah. I
Well, cool.
think, and I think the pop culture, it gave us a different kind of outlet. You had different genres of music, and you had different hairstyles. You got mad at your boyfriend. Well, by golly, I'm going to dye my hair pink streaks, and you know, put on pink lipstick and long earrings, and only on one side though, because I'm cool like that. And I'm going to go pick a different boy from a different, social group, just to spite you.
Did you notice that in other ways too, kind of like racially? Like maybe you were never attracted to black guys, but then you saw that one guy on TV and you're like, I think I like black guys now.
Yeah, I think so, because I think the 80s pop culture really brought in a lot of different races. that you didn't really see before.
Mhm.
Um, I think about MTV, and MTV was huge for pop culture.
Yeah.
And so Downtown Julie Brown, remember her?
Oh, yeah. Cool.
And I thought, oh my gosh, this is a beautiful woman who's not Anglo American. And look at her rocking it. I want to grow up and be a video jockey because look at this woman. Look at her. She's awesome. And I thought, wow. And
Did you
so, yeah, absolutely.
did you get influenced by that a lot too? Because the '80s, I mean, you really do see that, aside from the love and the pretty in pink girl, the Molly Ringwald, like, you still see, like, a very independent woman, like that very strong woman in the business suit, or the one who's gonna party when she wants to party, or drive a Jeep if she wants to drive a Jeep. Like, did that
Hmm.
influence you a lot as a young girl?
Yeah, I think so. Because I came from parents who were much older and very traditional. You marry in your race, you marry a man who can take care of you and support you. And I was very much well, why can't I take care of myself and support myself? And who cares what color they are? If they're good to me and I love them, what does it matter? And so, yeah, absolutely. I think that made a huge influence on my thought processes.
Yeah, because I know from a male's perspective, you see your dads of the '60s, '70s, '50s, whatever, and then your grandfathers. But then when I grew up, like, my mother wasn't that way. I did not see Madonna in that way. I did not see women in that,
Right?
and I don't know, just that independence. But then on the flip side of that, you still we're seeing kind of this back shadow of women that still needed to be taken care of. That still, there's still that underlying. We're not quite there yet, kind of within media, because like you said, you see it in entertainment, but I don't think you really still saw it in like big leadership roles quite yet in the '80s. But we were getting there. We were getting there.
Yeah. Well, when I think about that, the space shuttle exploded in the 80s. And to me, that was a pop culture thing because the first woman astronaut was on that shuttle. And to me, that was huge. I thought to myself, I remember the day the shuttle exploded. I was in the nurse's office and she had the TV on and I watched it. And I had watched her on the news and I thought, oh my gosh, I can be an astronaut? That
Nice.
is awesome. Why can't I do that? Well, I could. And before that, and before the changes in the pop culture, I didn't realize that that was something that I could do as a woman. So, absolutely, there was so much influence that changed how people perceive women and the accomplishments of women at that time. Well, and I think too that there became a time during all of that women, and at least for me, you don't have to settle. You have options. Whereas when I was little and I'd have all these boy crushes, I'm like, one of these are surely going to pick me, right? But then I started getting older and I'm like, I don't have to settle for that. And I think that so many women coming out in the pop culture scene kind of persuaded that for me, really, now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, totally. Because I think TV, music, I mean, it opened up the world. I mean,
Hmm.
you weren't just a product of your small town. You didn't have to live in your small town. You didn't have to marry the guy that lived in your small town.
Right?
And I think you could pop on the TV and you're like, man, look how these people are living in LA. Like, check out these people skiing in Aspen. Like, I do not have to do this. You know,
Absolutely.
whereas before, a lot of times, I don't think you even knew that existed. You
Mm.
didn't know those parts of the world were out there. There were that many people out in the world.
Yeah, it was a huge changing force for sure.
Well, cool. Yeah, I really appreciate you talking with me about this.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate your time, and sure we'll talk to you real soon.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right, thanks, Sonia. Appreciate it. So I have on the line is Sergeant First Class Vincent Williams. How you doing, Vince?
Oh, good. How about yourself?
So far, so good. Trying to stay warm in this weather.
Right.
Yeah, let's just jump kind of right on into it. So, how old were you in around 1980, 82?
I was about 13 years old.
Where'd you grow up at?
I grew up in a little small town in Arkansas. It's about 45 miles west of Memphis, Tennessee, over across the Mississippi River into Arkansas.
And did you soak up a lot of pop culture, a lot of that 80s stuff kind of back in those days, or?
Well, because of the invention of MTV, we got introduced to it pretty rapidly. But other than that, it was listening to what our parents listened to, which was my mom was a wild child. She listened to the Beatles, and my father was all blues.
Nice. Like Fats Domino and
Yeah,
yeah, you gotta love that stuff.
yeah, right. Especially when he's paying the bills.
hmm Did you like girls at a young age?
Oh yes, very, very, very much, very much.
Never thought they had cooties or anything.
If I did, it didn't last long. I had some uncles that was making sure that we were tracking with the ladies. So
Right. How old were you when you had your first crush?
12 or between 12 and 14 is when I believe I had my first crush.
Do you remember who she was, or what was her name?
Yeah, it was actually it was Farrah Fawcett. It was Brooke Shields. It wasn't anyone. It wasn't anyone local.
Do you remember your first like local crush, that first girl that you were just kind of head over heels about?
Yeah, I can't remember her name, but she actually came down for the summer to stay the summer with her father from Flint, Michigan, and that was around 13, 14. So until we graduated high school, she would come down for the summers, and yeah, it was the goofy stuff, trying to impress her along with the other guys in the neighborhood trying to impress her. So, but I got her because I had a car. It was
Nice.
a go-kart, but
But it's funny at that age too, the kind of what attracts you to them and what attracts them to you, and sometimes it's that simple. You just need a go-kart because we're all goofy kids.
right, right, something
We all need
different than everyone
braces,
else.
our hair's not combed right, and
Exactly.
were you pretty free to open up about the crushes and stuff like that with your parents? Were they pretty open with?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, there was one thing that actually was good. My parents were very open. My mom actually have never lived outside of Arkansas, and my father grew up in Mississippi, Vietnam vet, worked in Michigan and GM. So he settled down in Arkansas and became a school teacher. So he was back then, a lot of blacks wasn't able to have summer break. He made sure that my brother and I was able to. So we spent time in Michigan and California during the summers.
So you got a lot of diversity as far as.
Yeah, oh yeah. That's for sure.
Like,
A lot of stuff that we didn't see in my little town in Arkansas, for sure.
Nice. Did you have a lot of crushes growing up?
No, I just the girl
Until,
from
like,
Michigan. Yeah. And
until
then
high school.
yeah, now and then in high school I dated my son's mother the whole time that I was in high school, and then he was born when I was 21, and her and I split when I was maybe 24.
So
then,
that was
yeah,
kind of love.
yeah. She was the second crush in the first love.
Nice. Did you do the whole no passing thing with her? Or?
Yeah, I had to be smooth with it.
So what kind of stuff did you guys do, like pop culture wise? Like, were you a mall goer? Did you like arcades or?
We were more because there was, well, for one, there wasn't a mall. The closest mall to us was in Memphis, or we had to go all the way to Little Rock, which seemed like it took a couple of days to get there.
Right.
So, but we did have an arcade, and that was really cool. But it was the benefit to the arcade is my father got tired of giving us money to go to the arcade, so he broke down and bought us an Atari, so we would stay at home and save him a little money.
Nice. That's funny. And how did you guys view it, like other genres? Like, did you have like a particular style? Were you really into like R&B or hip hop, or were you really into like kind of that Boy George kind of fashion, or?
up until MTV, it really was like, the Southern blues, Delta blues, Elvis Presley. My grandmother, every time we went to her house, was playing jazz. But once MTV came out and the movie Footloose came out,
Yeah.
changed our lives. I'd never forget my brother, after watching the movie Footloose, my brother and I decided to go outside to our picnic table and try to do flips off of it, like the movie in Footloose. And my father just shook his head. He was like, "What is wrong with you guys?" And we told him about the movie Footloose. But
Was that
yeah. But we came from a musical family. We just wasn't introduced into what we considered back then was white pop culture. And
that real mainstream John Hughes movies kind of.
yeah. So once we got older and our father was cool with us, watching that type of stuff, then it was changed everything for us, for real.
Did that start to change your style a little bit? Did you start to like dress a certain way, or?
It actually did, in a weird way. Whole town, it seemed like we started dressing, the guys in that town started dressing more, especially the black guys started dressing more preppy. So we would actually try to go to school with our little penny loafers, and make sure that our pants legs were straight and wasn't completely touching the top of the penny loafer, and we had a nice crisp on. And before then, it was just like, you just put on whatever and went to school. So just to see a different culture through those platforms, it changed a lot. And a lot of I still have friends to this day that I talk to each day that we grew up. We started being friends when we were 6 years old, and you can definitely, in my opinion, you can tell a difference in how we got older compared to other kids our age that wasn't influenced by that type of pop culture.
Oh yeah, totally. Because I still remember 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Just kind of those days of Bobby Brown and Jodeci and New Edition.
Right.
So you had to dress fly, go to the club, and
Mm-hmm.
and we all thought we were adults.
Yeah. Yeah.
These girls, and they're dressed like little adults. We got the patent leather shoes on, and
Right. True story about Bobby Brown. One of my buddies, his father lived in Memphis, and I forget how, but he was able to get all these tickets to the concert. So he would always have concert tickets for us. And my parents was always cool about us doing that, but for whatever reason, they did not want us to go see Bobby Brown. And so my brother and I snuck over there with my buddies to see Bobby Brown. And as we were driving back to Arkansas, we had to cross over the Mississippi Bridge, and it was too foggy for us to get over the bridge. And this was like in the middle of the week. We had school the next day. So we had no choice but to go to my grandmother's house. She lived in Memphis and stayed the night. And we was on punishment for like 2 years or something.
that's right. Because I was talking to my parents about that one time, about how most of the trouble I got into at that age was because of girls. We had to sneak to that concert to go see some girls, or we slipped the car out to see some girls.
Exactly.
So again, at those ages, it was all about those young love and those crushes. I mean, even affecting our style. You know what I mean? Like,
mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. Did you ever see the movie Hustle and Flow?
yeah.
So there's a scene in there. They were at a skating rink. So that skating rink actually existed in Memphis, and it was very popular. And that's one of the reasons we got caught up in that fog, is because we didn't leave. We didn't leave directly from the concert. We went to that skating rink to follow the girls. And pushed us back a couple hours, and we got caught up in that fog.
And do you think because of that kind of stuff, did it open you up to like different styles? Like, because I think we all went to school like with that one goth girl who was just smoking hot, and we started to debate. Well, maybe I'll go goth, or you see Janet Jackson, and you're just like, oh, maybe I'm gonna go down that route. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
did that affect you as you got older and into high school and stuff?
It well, not at particularly in my high school because it was still kind of redneckish. So it was it
But
hadn't
did it
hit
but did it open
hit.
you up like internally, like inside? Did you have
Oh yeah,
like you
yeah.
said, you had crushes on like Farrah Fawcett and this and that? Like
It's,
were you kind of all over the map with those crushes? And
yeah, big time. Because it was, we well for one, what we seen on TV, we didn't see too many African Americans doing it. So and
yeah,
and then that they was and in the 80s they was pushing a lot of envelopes, in the movies with music. So it was. I just think we grew up at a really good time. So yeah, it definitely opened up. One of my favorite artists today is Pink, and I think if I had never been introduced to that type of pop culture, I would have never even took the time to even listen to Pink for her to become, my favorite artist.
yeah, totally. That movies, the music, all of that stuff. Do you think it made you fall like that much harder? Like when you did fall in love, like you said, you had the same girlfriend all through high school. Like, did you
Right.
just fall? Like, did you
Oh man,
crush?
hard. The movie Endless Love, the song Endless Love.
Mhm.
Yeah, they had it. Still, I mean, even to this day, I still watch it over Valentine's. No matter who I'm with, I still watch it over Valentine's weekend.
Do you have other songs and movies that just melt you or take you back to that time where you just, even if
Blue
you were
Lagoon.
sad, like, it just makes you smile. You're just like, oh
Oh
my
yeah.
God, like that was such a cool time, like to be in love.
Oh yeah, Blue Lagoon. Definitely that was huge for me. Even when I visited Australia, I made sure that I went to actually where they filmed the Blue Lagoon part of it. So so yeah, definitely Blue Lagoon. Movies like Harlem Nights that showed a little bit more comedic relief.
Mhm.
Those type of movies. Richard Pryor, The Toy. So I'm pretty sure I honed in on my laughing skills or my sense of humor for the ladies watching those movies.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, one thing my cousin taught me at a young age is get a girl to laugh.
Exactly, exactly.
And then kind of more, I would kind of guess at a psychological approach. Do you think 5, 6, 7 is too young to fall in love or to like be in love? Like, do you like you have kids? Like,
Hmm.
do you think your little guy when he said he was in love when he was 6 years old? Like, did you pay heed to that?
He actually never said that when he was that age, but I do have a granddaughter that
I
is
forget your
around it. Yeah, yeah. So she,
babies.
yeah, I'm an old cat, but she has had some major crushes, and that I've heard about, and I just think I personally think it's cute. I think as long as the parents or the grandparents or whoever adult is around can guide them correctly, like it's cool to be in love at that age. It's cool to think you're in love at that age, but that's about as far as it needs to go, and try to walk them through the process, even though we all are still learning, no matter what age we are about love. But yeah, I don't think it's too young to be in love or what they consider to be in love.
Oh yeah, totally. And I think it's again so natural to our and we all recall those times. Like you said, whether it was a celebrity or 5, 6 years old and seeing Kim Basinger, and I'm like I want to be an adult now.
Right. Oh, I did have a niece. When she was around that age, she was in love with the vampire dude from I forget the name of the movie, Twilight.
Yeah.
I thought it was bad with the posters, and my brother even took her to like these little meet and greets with the cast and all that stuff. Now she's about to be a doctor, so I don't. I mean, she didn't
Right.
go, she didn't go, crazy or anything, but it was good. It was a good release for her. It was good for her to feel that emotion.
Yeah, totally, totally. And do you think like the movies and the music and all that pop culture that we grew up with, do you think it gave us a distorted view as adults about like love and romance, or do you think it kind of strengthened our bonds and our expression of that?
I actually believe, comparing it to what I hear and see now, I really believe it strengthened our bond.
Yeah, me
I,
too.
I really do, and I think even my parents' generation, the music and what they seen on TV also did the same for them. My son is 28, and I don't feel as though what he might have seen or heard, in his generation.
Yeah, I kind of think the same thing, because I often talk about how generations kind of repeat themselves. The
Mhm.
30s were like the 60s, and the 50s were like the 80s. So if you look at the 50s, like you said, you had that Fats Domino and Elvis Presley and Buddy Holly, and then kind of that birth of television and
Right.
kind of some of those movies, and then you kind of see some of that innocence kind of played out in the 80s also, where it's again just these expressions of love, like we're not kind of hindered by war, we're not
Correct.
hindered by news, kind of going in one direction or the other. I think it was just kind of a very free time to be in love. And because like I said, all cultures have experienced crushes and love music and love movies, but today I think they have singles. Back then we had a whole movie or a whole album. Like, do you remember
Right.
an
Right.
album
Right.
cover and just sitting there in love or thinking about your crush or that girl at school, and it's like the whole album cover to cover.
Yeah, exactly. And it to me it was like a good meditation. It was a really really good meditation. And I don't know if you guys had it where you grew up, but after midnight, um, we had the quiet storm. So it was all the love songs, R&B songs, and so it was better for us to stay in the house and listen to the quiet storm than to be outside in the streets.
Oh,
But they
totally.
don't. Yeah, but now you gotta create your own little playlist just to get something similar to that.
Yeah, it's also fast. They watch, and the movies are good and the music's good. I'm not saying any of it's bad and it doesn't
Hmm.
have influence on that. I just don't think it's, that barrage of really music and movies. They get a lot of YouTube videos and a lot of laughter and a lot of
Yeah,
comedy, and all of that stuff is great, but like we would literally, like you said, sit there for 2-3 hours just
right.
just pining in love, just longing, or just sitting in heartache.
Exactly, exactly. Over New Year's Eve, Jessica and I were at uh, her sister and my cousin's house, and he just improved impromptu. And I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton, "Islands in the Stream,"
Oh, one of my
and it
favorite.
and it blew their mind, and it blew my mind that I actually still knew the words.
Yeah, if that one doesn't tug at your heartstrings, then.
Right, right.
And then I think the cool part about that too is it makes you happy about love. It even makes you happy about heartache. So
Yes.
I think that's an important lesson that I think a lot of kids don't learn, that it's okay to be heartbroken, and it makes you feel alive. It lets you know that you loved and that you can be loved.
Hmm. Yeah, and in a way, it makes you stronger as a human, as a person.
Oh, totally. And I think that's why I was going to ask if you thought it was important that crushes and young love are important to our development. Obviously, you do.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yes, very much, very much. As long as it's just yeah, it just I don't know if it's because I'm old or it's just a little bit scary for my granddaughters, for me, but
Yeah, I
but
think that happens with age, and I think that's why we want to obviously always keep things age appropriate.
right.
But I think that's why movies like Fast Times at Ridgemont High are like so eye opening, or at least we're at the time for how
Or
adolescents deal with sexuality and love and young love and
right. But
that,
since you brought that up, so remember the movies Porky's?
yeah.
So let, so let me tell you what I took from that movie. What I took from that movie is the embarrassment of the women when they found out that the guys were peeping through a peephole. I didn't catch the sexual innuendo of all that. It was just the how embarrassed the women were.
Oh
And
yeah, totally.
so that
Yeah.
that's Porky's is still a great movie to me, but the first time I seen it, I was like, oh man, oh God, they really that's really wrong for them to do that to those girls, you know.
Well, and again, we're being so influenced by a lot of that pop culture. Do you think like the image of that strong, independent woman being kind of portrayed and emulated in pop culture, did that attract you or intimidate you? Or
I felt sorry for him, and then when like in Porky's when the female gym teacher pretty much stood her ground, and then that was great to see. It was also in other movies, and it's always been great for me to see women of strength show their strength. and is allowed to show their strength. So I'm a big. Our mothers are strong. So if I believe my mother is the strongest woman on the planet, why can't the next woman be?
Yeah, I feel the same way. So you very much like kind of that perception that women are given off as the working girl, or as that independent girl, or Madonna who had her own sexuality and her own thing going. And
Oh, shoot, yeah. Yes, for sure.
yeah, me too. And I can see that in you just because I know your girlfriend. So
Right. Right. Exactly.
she's not a weak woman by any means.
No, not at all.
Well, cool, man. I really appreciate you talking with me about this, and yeah, and hopefully we'll get to chat here really soon.
I hope so too. Yeah. Keep practicing that golf swing, man, and hopefully we can get out there and do something.
Yeah, you too. We'll get together here real soon.
All righty.
All right, thanks, brother.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was cool. And I think one thing that shows us is that aside from the effects that crushes and adolescent love have on our adult view of love and heartache, and the influences that pop culture have on our internalization and expression of love and heartache, that we also often have very fond memories of that time. And I think that's worthy all in itself. And on that note, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Once again, I hope you guys have a great week and a great weekend. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share, and all that good stuff. I definitely appreciate the support, and look forward to talking to you guys next week.